Avoiding conflict does not mean running away from disagreement or abandoning your values. Instead, it involves learning to manage your reactions, emotions, and perceptions with greater clarity and wisdom. This approach, rooted in Stoic philosophy and the teachings of many classical thinkers, is based on the idea that true peace comes from within. Often, it is not events themselves but the way we perceive them that creates tension. In this guide, we will explore key principles from Stoicism and moral philosophy to help defuse conflict and cultivate a deeper, more enduring sense of peace. 1. The Stoic view. Inner peace as protection against conflict. Stoic philosophers such as Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius taught that the ability to avoid conflict begins with a clear understanding of what is within our control and what is not. Our thoughts, judgments, and actions are under our authority. In contrast, the words of others, external events, and the reactions of the world are beyond our control. By deeply embracing this distinction, we free ourselves from anger, envy, and frustration. We learn that fighting against what we cannot influence is a waste of energy and a constant source of suffering. For example, if a coworker unfairly criticizes you, trying to force them to change their opinion is likely to be ineffective. By focusing instead on your own integrity and remaining calm, you avoid fueling the situation. This Stoic mindset requires strong emotional discipline, especially when it comes to anger, which Stoics viewed as a weakness rather than a strength. Instead of reacting impulsively to an offense, the Stoic observes the emotion, acknowledges it for what it is, and then chooses not to act on it. This attitude applies just as much in personal relationships. During a disagreement with a partner, choosing not to match their tone can prevent a minor issue from becoming a major argument. Marcus Aurelius also reminds us that every human being is imperfect and often acts out of flawed reasoning. By recognizing others as fellow humans prone to error, we can replace resentment with patience and compassion. This perspective helps us avoid taking things personally. Often, hurtful behavior reveals more about the pain or confusion of the other person than about any actual hostility. Stoicism does not ask us to tolerate injustice passively. Rather, it calls us to respond with dignity, guided by virtue and self-respect. 2. The classical philosophical approach. Reason, dialogue, and ethics. Classical philosophy, from Socrates and Spinoza to Kant, offers practical tools to help prevent conflict by promoting reason, meaningful dialogue, and ethical clarity. Socrates, known for his art of conversation, believed that many conflicts are driven by the desire to win rather than the desire to understand. His method involved asking thoughtful questions that encourage people to clarify their beliefs. When we adopt this approach, a heated argument can be transformed into a shared exploration of truth. For example, in a political or social disagreement, rather than insisting on your own viewpoint, you could ask genuine questions like, "What led you to that conclusion?" Or, "Can you share a specific example?" This creates a collaborative environment and reduces hostility. Spinoza teaches us that negative emotions such as hatred, jealousy, and fear are rooted in ignorance. When we take time to understand the deeper causes of people's behavior, we become less likely to judge them harshly or react aggressively. Suppose someone repeatedly interrupts you. Instead of feeling irritated, you might consider whether they grew up in an environment where speaking forcefully was necessary to be heard. This kind of insight leads to a form of rational empathy that naturally calms tensions. Kant, on the other hand, encourages us to act according to moral principles that we would want everyone to follow. This means our actions should not be shaped by circumstance or emotion, but by a deep commitment to what is right. If someone lies to you, it may be tempting to lie in return. However, by choosing to remain honest, even when others are not, you maintain your integrity and reduce the likelihood of further conflict. Philosophy does not promise a life without disagreement. Instead, it gives us the tools to approach disagreement with maturity, patience, and respect. 3. Practical principles for daily conflict avoidance. Drawing from both Stoic and classical philosophy, we can identify several practical habits that help us navigate everyday interactions with greater peace and clarity. One essential habit is learning to pause before reacting. When tension arises, taking a moment to breathe or mentally reframe the situation can prevent impulsive decisions and create space for thoughtful responses. Alongside this, it is helpful to practice active listening. By repeating or summarizing what the other person has said before responding, we show that we are truly trying to understand, not simply waiting to speak. Another key habit is maintaining emotional distance. This does not mean detachment or coldness, but rather the ability to observe our emotions without being overwhelmed by them. With this kind of self-awareness, we become more capable of responding calmly and intentionally. In conversations, it is also wise to focus on understanding rather than trying to be right. When we shift from defending our own position to seeking common ground, we move away from conflict and toward collaboration. Letting go of what we cannot control is equally important. Whether it involves another person's behavior, mood, or opinion, learning to release that burden allows us to stay grounded in our own values. Reasoning clearly rather than reacting emotionally is another powerful tool. For example, instead of saying, "You always do this," we can say, "I felt hurt when that happened." This shift invites empathy rather than defensiveness. Finally, when faced with aggression, responding with calm and measured words often softens the situation and prevents further escalation, offering a chance for resolution instead of division. Although these habits may seem simple, they require a high level of inner discipline. Practicing them consistently can radically improve the way we experience human relationships. 4. Recognizing limits and setting boundaries. It would be unrealistic to believe that every conflict can be prevented through calmness and compassion alone. Some situations demand confrontation, especially when it comes to protecting vulnerable individuals or challenging clear injustice. Even in these cases, it is possible to engage with philosophical clarity and moral intention. Stoicism does not promote submission or silence. It values courage, self-respect, and ethical strength. A Stoic does not ignore injustice, but responds to it with calm determination and integrity. Similarly, Kant reminds us that ethics may require us to take a stand, but always in a way that respects the dignity of others and adheres to consistent principles. The goal is not to eliminate all conflict. Instead, it is to avoid unnecessary conflict, to resist the temptation to act out of pride or vengeance, and to handle necessary conflict with honor. Conclusion: cultivating inner peace to prevent outer conflict. The most effective way to avoid conflict begins with self-transformation. By developing inner peace, emotional control, rational clarity, and a strong sense of ethical duty, we become better equipped to neutralize tension around us. This path, taught for centuries by Stoic and classical philosophers, remains deeply relevant in a world that often rewards impulsive and emotional reactions. A person who learns to master themselves, to see others with compassion, and to respond without violence becomes a pillar of stability in their environment. To avoid conflict is to choose wisdom over pride and peace over revenge. It is to turn your life into a quiet example of dignity and depth. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with others. Always remember that true power is silent.